Hi, today we're going to learn about intervals. Okay, intervals are one of the fundamental things of music. You might call it an element. If music is made up of three major things: melody, harmony, and rhythm, intervals are the fundamental element of harmony. So they exist anytime you hear more than one tone. Anytime you hear two tones relative to each other, you're hearing an interval. Okay, so intervals are described by number. It's not. A lot of people tend to say that intervals are the distance between two pitches. It's really the distance plus one, because to name an interval, you have to count the pitch that you start on. Okay, for instance, if I say A, B, C, like that, we've got three pitches, A, B, and C. I would call this a third, A to C, because we include A, B, and C in naming that interval. Okay, so we'd call something like that a third. So let's take a listen to the intervals going up from A. So here's A, here's B, and we can hear A and B against each other. This is a second. A to B is a second, because if we count A, B, it's 1, 2. Okay. And like I said, if we go from A to C, that's a third. A, B, C is 1, 2, 3. A, B, C. So anytime we hear them go from A to C like that, or if we hear them at the same time, that's an interval of a third. Okay, then there's D. A, B, C, D. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we hear them like that, or when we hear them like that, that's what we call a fourth. Then A to E is a fifth. A, B, C, D, E. Okay, now I hope you've noticed that each of these intervals has their own distinct sound, and that's going to come into play when we talk about ear training. Okay, so this is A to F. A, B, C, D, E, F. And that's a sixth. A to G is a seventh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And what comes after G in the musical alphabet? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A again. We get A again. Okay, so this is called an octave. And every time you have an octave, that's when you go from your starting pitch to the pitch of the same letter. This A sounds higher than this A, but they're both A's. And that has to do with the ratio of their frequencies. This one is vibrating twice as fast as this one. Okay, so that's intervals from A up to A, going up to an octave. Now, you can have intervals going up, but you can also have intervals going down. Let's go from A to G. See, that's a second as well. A to B is 2. A to G is 2 as well. So we call that a second. That is a second descending. Okay, and then A to F would be 1, 2, 3. So that's a third, descending third. A to E would be a fourth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's a fourth. And then A to D would be a fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's a fifth descending. A to C is a sixth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then A to B is a seventh. A, G, F, E, D, C, B. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And A to 1A lower, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is another octave. Now this A is vibrating twice as fast as this A. So every interval has its relationship to the pitch you start on, and there is a ratio of one pitch vibrating to another. Okay, so they each get numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but you can go higher than 8. You can go from A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can go to 10. You can go to 11. And 12. That's 12. I think. You can go to 13. You can go to 14. And 15 would be 2 octaves. So we know that's A, but this is also A. Not 1 octave, but 2 octaves higher than the A we started on. Okay, so that is intervals in relationships up to 15. We can go down from A as well. We can go an octave, a ninth, a 10th, an 11th. Okay, and my guitar doesn't go any lower than that. So we're stuck with the 11th on the way down from A. Okay, so intervals don't just go up and down from A, they can go up and down from any pitch. If we started on, let's say D, D could be our first pitch, D to E would be a second, D to F would be a third, D to G a fourth, and so on. And you can have intervals going down from D as well. D to C is a second, D to B is a third, D to A is a fourth down, and so on. Okay, so intervals can start on any pitch, and they relate to something like how far each pitch is from the pitch that we started on. Okay, so we have different types of intervals as well. We have big ones and we have little ones, because in the old days, I think in ancient Greece, they sang in these things called modes, where you step up all the intervals and you use those to make melodies. You might make up something like that. What was I getting to? What was my point there? So we had a collection of pitches, and they ended up not all being the same distance apart. It ends up that there are tones in between the tones that we use for a scale. This is a scale, or a mode, whatever you want to call it. Okay, but there are pitches in between A and B, and they have a different name depending on whether you're going up versus whether you're going down. So if you're going up, we have A sharp, and B. A sharp, B. And if you're going down, then we would call that a B flat. B flat, A. Okay, but this pitch in between is a different distance from A to B, right? So it's smaller because this one is closer to A. You can see on my guitar that they're right next to each other in fret. So an A to a B flat like this would be a different kind of second, which we would call a minor second because it's smaller. Okay, A to B is a major second because that's bigger. If you want to see physically how far they are from each other, here's A, here's B. It's up 2 frets, A, to B, and A to B flat is just up 1 fret. This distance is the smallest you can travel in musical intervals on the guitar using the frets. Okay, so we call that a minor second, A to B flat, and we call A to B a major second. So now we have 2 kinds of seconds. Let's explore the other different kinds of intervals that might have different variations in them. A to B flat is a minor second, and A to B is a major second. Okay, likewise, we have A to C. So from A to C is the smaller kind of third, because the pitch below C is a B. We don't have anything in between that. So this is a minor third because this is the smallest distance from an A to a C. Minor third, okay? But A to C sharp is another third, because we use the letters A and C. So A to C sharp is a major third, whereas A to C is a minor third. Okay, we're going to skip fourths and fifths for now. We'll come back to them, and we'll talk about A to F. Okay, so A to F, again, is the smallest type of interval from A to F without making a fifth. F is right next to E, so you don't have anything in between that, so A to F is a minor sixth. It's the small kind. If we went from A to F sharp, that would be a major sixth. Okay, so we have a minor sixth, and we have a major sixth, and then we have A to G. Now G is right next to F sharp, and we can't get any smaller than A to G in terms of make it a seventh. I mean, we can technically, but we'll get into that much later. So A to G is what we call a minor seventh, and A to G sharp, because it's a little bigger, is what we call a major seventh. Minor seventh, major seventh. Okay, and then I just want to hear the octave after that. All right, so those are generally the major and minor intervals in a scale, or a key of music for that matter. No, you know what? It's not all the intervals in a key of music. You can start on any pitch. But we have major seconds and minor seconds, and we have major thirds and minor thirds, and major sixths and minor sixths, and major sevenths and minor sevenths. All right, so those are the majors and the minors, and the other types of intervals are called perfect. Now, they have a sort of different quality in terms of the key that you're listening to. They're a little bit more neutral. A lot of times in a major key, the major intervals from the root sound happy to a lot of people. That's a gross overgeneralization, but I hope it communicates the idea. And the minor intervals, I guess, from the root in a minor key would sound sad, generally speaking. Very, very generally speaking. Okay, but the perfect ones don't sound either or. They're just kind of neutral. There's the perfect fifth, A to E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's the octave, A to A. Okay, so there's 3 perfect intervals, fourth, fifth, and the octave, and the rest can either be major or they can be minor, depending on whether you make something sharp or flat. Okay, so the thing about perfect intervals is that they can be stretched and they can be compressed to go a little bit higher or a little bit lower than their sound. If we take A to D, this perfect fourth, and we play A to D sharp instead, we've augmented the fourth. We've made the fourth a little bit bigger. So this is what we call an augmented fourth, A to D sharp. If A to D is perfect, then A to D sharp is augmented. Likewise, we can take A to E, okay? And if we go, and this is a perfect fifth, A to E. And if we take A to E, the perfect fifth, and we compress it, if we shrink it to A to E flat, then we've diminished this fifth. So A to E flat is a diminished fifth. Now, if you were listening carefully, you may have noticed that A to D sharp, the augmented fourth, and A to E flat, the diminished fifth, are the same sound. They are the same interval to the ear, depending on what key you're in. So intervals can overlap a lot of times, and this is where things get like kind of hazy, and we get into some interesting gray areas, because depending on how you're using an interval in a key of music, you can stretch it out or shrink it so that it so that it sounds like another interval. Okay, so an augmented fourth can also be a diminished fifth. Okay, so I've explained augmented and diminished intervals. Okay, with that in mind, I'm going to show you the most common type of augmented interval and the most common type of diminished interval in classical music. Let's start with the diminished one. I mentioned the minor seventh a while ago. Okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a minor 7. Okay, if we take the minor 7 and we shrink it down to A to G flat, then we get a diminished 7. And this is a really important interval for creating diminished 7th chords, where you have A, C, E flat, G flat, bum 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 bum. It's a really cool sound where you get sort of things like this. And it's a great useful chord for creating tension and leading the ear to the next chord. Okay, so you have a diminished 7, A to G flat, and now I'm going to show you the most common augmented interval in classical music. Maybe the augmented fifth is used just as much, but I think the augmented sixth is the most common interval. So let's take a major sixth, and we're going to go from A to F sharp, this major sixth, and yeah, we're going to make it go from A to F double sharp. What? A to F double sharp? Yeah, that's right. If we push that a little bit wider, then we've augmented this sixth, and I need to use the double sharp to rationalize it as an augmented sixth. Okay. You may have noticed that I used a minor seventh and made it smaller to create a diminished seventh. And I also used a major sixth, A to F sharp, to go to I used a major interval to expand to an augmented interval. A to F double sharp is our augmented sixth. Okay, so not only can perfect intervals be augmented and diminished, excuse me, but major intervals can be augmented and minor intervals can be diminished. And this bit of music theory can be very confusing sometimes, but all I can say is that it's a good practice to keep your mind on what key you're in at any given time and what scale you're using. Now let's talk about melodic intervals. Melodic intervals make up scales. If we string a bunch of seconds together, A, go up a second, 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 we get a scale. And we can go up the scale like I just played, and we can go down the scale as well. Okay, so that's one thing that we can use to start creating melodies, and we can also use sequences, which are made up of intervals. I'll take one of the most common sequences you'll ever hear is if you go from your starting pitch, like A, go up a third. That's our musical idea for the sequence right there. Just these two pitches, A, up a third to C. Okay, now let's move it up to the next third, starting on B. B, if we go up a third to D, that's the next part of the sequence. And then we'll go up another third from C to E, and then another third, D to F, and then another third, E, G, then another third, F, A, then another third, G, B, and we'll end on A. And this will create a little musical idea that we can use in a melody that makes things a little more interesting than just wandering up and down the scale. Now we have a sort of numerical pattern that we can hear, and we can make it go up the scale, we can make it go down the scale. What's next? We can make it go up the scale and down the scale, and we can turn it upside down too. We can start on the higher pitch of the third, go a third down, and step up the scale. Wow, I messed up. Okay, I'll try to do a better job this time. There we go. And we can take that upside down interval and work it down the scale as well. Okay, so intervals give us scales, and they give us sequences, and we use those to turn into melodies. Yeah, let's make a little melody right now, and I'll tell you the intervals in it. Okay, so there's a little melodic idea I just came up with on the spot. Yeah, so I was just playing around with pitches and looking for something that sounded okay. So we started on A, and then we went down a fourth to E, and then back up a fourth to A. Then we went up a third to C. Then we went down a second to B, and then I forget what we did. Okay, so after B we went to A. So we went from A to E to A to D to B, down a second, and then we went down another second to A, and then we went up a second to B, and then we went down a third to G, and then up a second to A. Okay, so that's how intervals appear inside of your melody, and yeah, all melodies are made up of intervals. Unless your melody is one pitch long, there are intervals in them, and that is the beginning of a harmonic interaction with music. We also have harmonic intervals. Those happen when we hear an interval at the same time. We hear two pitches at the same time. Here's A and B. And it's the idea of consonance and dissonance is no clearer than when we're hearing intervals harmonically. A and B, does that sound pleasing or unpleasing? That's the classical idea of harmonic consonance and dissonance. What about A and C? Do they sound pleasing or displeasing together? What about A and D? Do they sound good? How about A and E? How about A and F at the same time? How about A and G? How do they sound? And then A and A. Good. So when we hear harmonic intervals, when we hear intervals at the same time, this is the beginning of chords. Chords are just harmonic intervals, basically two harmonic intervals stacked on top of each other. We have A and C, and we have C and E. And if we put them together, we get this triad, which is the chord of three pitches. And we can start with 7 triads in every key of music. Here's A, C, E, that's A minor, B, D, F, that's B diminished, C, E, G, that's C major, D, F, A, that's D minor, E, G, B, that's E minor, and then there's F, A, C, that's F major, G, B, D, that's G major, and then if we go up an octave, we're right back where we started in a sense at A minor, A, C, E, right back where we started, but one octave higher. Okay, so that's the beginning of chords, is intervals. And sometimes you can imply a chord with just 2 intervals. You can imply A major or A minor with just 2 sounds like A and E, or with C and E, or with A and C. Okay, so we talked about intervals going up earlier, and we talked about intervals going down. Now the relationship of the up intervals to the down intervals is something that we call inversion. If we go from A to B, upward, that's a second, A and B. We can count 1, 2. But downward, A, G, F, E, D, C, B. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A to B on the way down is a 7th. And A to B on the way up is a second. 1, 2. Okay? So this 7th down is said to be an inversion of the second. So a 7th inverts to a second. And if we look at the third, A to C, this third will invert to a 6th. A, G, F, E, D, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so if we turn the 6th upside down, C, A to A, C, then the 6th inverts to a 3rd. All right, let's take a look at the 4th. A to D, 1, 2, 3, 4. A to D, if we turn it upside down and go A, G, F, E, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's a fifth. So the fourth inverts to a fifth. And then what does the fifth invert to? Actually, the fifth inverts to a fourth. Now we're going to see this reciprocal relationship between all of these intervals. A to E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a fifth, A to E. And if we go down to E, A, G, F, E, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this fifth inverts to a fourth. Okay, likewise the sixth, A to F, going up, will invert to a third. A to F, 1, 2, 3, A to F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's a sixth. Okay, and then the seventh will invert to a 2, just like the 2 inverted to a seventh. So they flip and turn into one another. A, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gives us G. A to G is our minor seventh. And if we go A to G, well, that's the second. 1, 2. Trying to play them at the same time. There we go. A and G. So a minor seventh inverts to a major second. And the perfect octave, A to A, will invert to an octave. A. Okay, an octave can only turn into an octave. Okay, so that's the start of understanding inversions. The other thing about inversions is that minor intervals will become major intervals. If we go from A to C, that's a minor third, A, B, C. C is right next to B, so it can't get any smaller, technically, but we learned that we can stretch it to A to C flat. That would be a diminished second. A to C flat. Okay, so that I'm getting distracted now. So A to C, that's a minor third. Okay, if we invert it, minor's going to flip to major. So I would expect that this minor third will invert to a major sixth. Okay, A to C, A, B. No, that's not B. A, G, F, E, D, C, C to A. That's a major sixth. A to C is a minor third, and A to C inverted, C to A, is a major sixth. How can I prove that to you? I'm going to take the major sixth of A and F sharp. Bum, 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 bum. Do you hear how it kind of sounds like that song? My bonnie lies over the ocean. Yeah, my bonnie lies over the sea. This song starts with this relationship that sounds like my bonnie lies over the ocean. Okay, so if we go from A to F sharp like that, it's going to sound the same as C to A, but in a different key. If we play. Okay, now we just listen to a C major scale, and we should be thinking in the key of C. C to A. Do you hear that? My bonnie lies over the ocean. There we go. My bonnie. So C to A has the same sound as A to F sharp did in another key. So I hope I proved that that these are both major sixths, A to F sharp and C to A. Okay, so that was inversions, and we got up to the fact that major intervals invert to minor intervals, but also diminished intervals invert to augmented intervals. Okay, we don't have to worry about perfects because a perfect will invert to perfect. A to D is a perfect fourth. D to A, D, E, F, G, A is a perfect fifth. Okay, so I think that's why they call perfect intervals perfect, because one sound, if you invert it, will be the same exact distance as another perfect interval. A fourth of this type, if you invert it, it becomes a fifth of this type. And it is this type that has no major or minor. That's what I mean by perfect inverts to perfect. That's the best I can describe it. Sorry. Okay. But now we've got to look at diminished and augmented intervals. Let's take the augmented fourth, A to D sharp. Okay, if we invert D sharp to A, D sharp, E, F, G, A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, that's a diminished fifth. And so that's a diminished fifth right there, and A to D sharp is an augmented fourth. Well, the final thing I want to talk about is how intervals are the foundation for ear training and for recognizing things, picking them up by ear. Okay, so the thing about intervals is that every interval has a unique sound, and you can pick out those sounds from pieces of music. All right, so if we start with A and B flat, that has a very unique sound. You might recognize that. Okay, so this thing that we call a minor second, A to B flat like that, is recognizable as a motif, just those two pitches. Let's go from A to B now. That's a major second. You might recognize that as the beginning as the first two pitches of this song if we hear it in the key of D. Let's go to A and C. Bum, bum. I missed it. I messed up bad. Okay. Let's listen to A and C again. Okay, so that minor third can be heard in that type of tune. Let's listen to A and D. It's perfect. Let's listen to a major third. Ding dong. Okay, let's listen to a perfect fourth. What else does the perfect fourth sound like? There's another one. There we go. Picking things out by ear there. And let's listen to the perfect fifth. A and E. Oh, you know what? Let's listen to an augmented fourth first. Some of these you'll recognize, some of them you won't. Okay, so that was an augmented fourth. Let's listen to the perfect fifth now. Whoops, I messed up. A, E. There's another A there. Okay, let's listen to a minor sixth. What does that sound like? A and F. A, F. Oh, I know. Okay, so that's a minor sixth, major sixth. We covered that earlier. Okay, major. We did a major sixth, minor seventh. That's probably my best one for a minor seventh. I hope you recognize that. Major seventh. I don't really have a good one for the major seventh besides that song. Anyway, that's what a major seventh sounds like. Now the perfect octave. Hear that? Perfect octave. Okay, so that's the basis of ear training, is intervals. And I hope you got something out of this. That was our little talk on intervals, what they are, how they sound, how you can tweak them and change them around, and how you build things up out of them to make music. All right, so take care. Have a good one.